We're on. This is my first actual content video where I'm going to talk about something of content instead of overhead for the channel. Well, at least that's what I think I'm going to do as I sit here right now. But I don't know. Just to remind everybody, in case you haven't heard, I'm making trash videos that aren't very good, and that's all I can afford to do, both psychically and financially. So I'm out here in the woods, and it's a nice day, and you might hear airplanes flying by. It's a busy airplane day for some reason, or maybe I've just never noticed that every day is a busy airplane day until I just came out here today and tried to record things and noticed that there was a bunch of airplanes flying around. You might also hear, if you really want to try, you can listen for the traffic of cars on the road, which is way the hell far behind you. And I don't even know what this topic is going to be when I start the video, which is right now. I just have to show up and start talking about suffering. And that's the contract I made with myself. And so I'm going to show up. I did. I'm going to start talking about suffering. And I'm going to try to, here's an idea. I'm going to try to just ramble on about some dynamics about suffering that I thought about a couple of days ago. And here's a pine cone. I'm going to pick up a pine cone. This pine cone is like a symbol for something. It's a chunk of stick. They're just objects to help me gesture at abstract ideas. The pine cone is a symbol for facts about your life that cause you a lot of suffering. Facts about your life that make your life miserable. And this is something that those of you who are chronically miserable can feel. There's a fact about your life. And I have a thing that harrows me, you know. I have a fact about my life that causes me misery. And I'm guessing many of you do too. I'll describe the thing, I'll tell you about the facts of my life that make my life miserable for me. In this video or some other time, you can pretty much guarantee I'll talk about it. But I'm just saying that everybody has this. Not everybody, but so many people have this. And this is a thing that if you focus on it, these facts about your life that make you miserable, if you focus on them, will tear you apart, will render you dysfunctional. Listen, I really want to make this clear how bad this is. So I want to tell you about some feelings that I get when I contemplate the thing about my life that makes my life miserable. First, if I do it, if I focus right, catch me at the right moment, I get choked up like you can hear me doing right now. I get a little choked up and I start to tear up. And there have been moments in my life where I have experienced what I call a black wave or a cold black wave of death or something, propagating through my body. It's terrifying, this cold wave of death, when the realization sets in that what's harrowing you in your life is not going to go away. That's another dimension of this. I might have forgot to mention this. This fact about your life, there's no evidence that it's going away. It makes you feel doomed. You will always have this paining you. And that's a dimension of the facts about your life that make your life miserable, that make it extra miserable, is because you have no expectation that you'll ever get any real relief, right? So anyway, there's this cold black wave like energy drain something that like propagates through my body. It's like it's not a shiver or anything, but you know, honestly, I've only felt this thing maybe twice in my life. But those 2 times, they didn't terrify me so much as like, they don't terrify me in the sense of like, oh, I need to call 911 or something. I've just experienced something that's out of this world and terrible. And no, it's like, it's common sense. It doesn't terrify you from the perspective of being novel, unusual, or something to be alarmed about in the sense of like, this is an immediate danger. But it is horrible. And I guess I want to know, there's something about this social interaction we can do here as me making videos, and you can comment on them. Maybe you can comment as to whether or not you've ever felt this cold wave of terror, of death or whatever in your life. I'm curious if anybody else has ever felt this. But it's really horrible. And like I said, I've only felt it like twice. But the rest of my life has been another kind of feeling that's sort of a lesser image, a much reduced degree of that cold black wave of death, whatever it is. It's a kind of slow burning despair. It feels like there's a pressure, like maybe you're underwater and you're swimming around in one of those high pressure suits. I don't know. Why would you complain about feeling pressure if you're in one of those suits, right? But pretend maybe you don't have that suit on and you can swim around and you just feel this pressure. It's metaphorically like a pressure coming from without. It's kind of like gonna crush you, but you resist it automatically with a pressure coming from within, and it meets at a kind of stasis. The pressure, the underwater thing in the metaphor, I think, is more apt to describe how it slows you down. You can see how water slows you down. There's a lot more resistance to your body's motions in the water. Psychologically, it's sort of like an analog to that. It's like there seems to be like a resistance to everything you want to do. Or particularly things you don't want to do offer the most resistance. Because like you don't want to take out the trash, you don't want to do your homework, you don't want to do any of that stuff. Because that puts you more in touch with that resistance. The resistance swells up within you, even though it feels like it's coming from outside of you. I don't know, I'm getting these metaphors screwed up and stuff like that, but that's bound to happen, all right? This is a trash video. But you can go through your life feeling like that, like this, you're at an equilibrium pressure from outside of yourself, working against the pressure coming from the doom from outside of yourself. It takes everything you've got to offer resistance to the doom pressure coming from outside so that you can take care of yourself, take out the trash, do your homework. Take care of your kids if you've got any. So you go through your life with decades of that. I had this other symbol. All right, this is all the nasty hurt and sense of doom on the one hand. And on the other hand, there's your response to it. How you respond to it, how you cope with it, what you do in reaction to that hurt. Maybe this looks dumb, me holding a pine cone and a chunk of stick. And maybe when I imagined that I would have two such objects, I was fantasizing about covering this topic a couple days ago, and I was like, maybe I should hold objects, to help people visualize. I don't know. Maybe I'm on. Maybe in real time, this seems like really dumb. Should I just toss these over my shoulder and No, I'll keep this. Look, this is how you react to the stuff. And generally, there's two categories of your reactions that you can offer. There's what society sanctions. They call them mature reactions, adult reactions. Are you handling your problems like a mature adult? Are you being rational? And that kind of thing. And then there's the other category where that society frowns on, that are typically addictive behaviors, for example. This could be taking drugs or doing anything to distract yourself, burying your head in the sand to avoid feeling this. So you bury your head in the sand, you distract yourself, you take a bunch of drugs, you doom scroll, in the modern world, you can get addicted to, of course, to the internet. And these things are considered, inappropriate, childish, inappropriate, immature, irresponsible reactions to your pain. And so there's these two categories. And I was analyzing this idea of the two categories, and I was trying to figure out what are the real bases for the distinction between the two categories. Because I myself have what society would call inappropriate, immature, childish, self-destructive response to my pain. I could easily call myself an addict. I'm addicted to ignoring my pain, burying my head in the sand, and trying to forget it. Not seeping. If I were to seep immediate personal gratification, I suppose I could be in high demand, as like other people would come to me looking to drink from my endless water fountain of immediate personal gratification. Come get it. But no, I seek it. That's what I meant to say. I seek immediate personal gratification as I ignore my pain, because I am convinced that this ain't going away. This is my life till death. And I can't fix it. There's nothing I can do to get away from this pain in any rational, in the socially approved ways. I can't overcome this. And if I can't overcome this, I'm an emotional wreck, and I can't function, and I can't even take care of myself physically. I can't take out my trash. So in order to take care of myself and be able to take out the trash and go shopping, I've got to ignore that pain. I've got to bury my head in the sand. Wake up every morning and jump right into doing the stuff I do on the internet that takes me away from my awareness of my pain. That's addiction. Maybe not hardcore addiction that you talk about, the kind that ruins your life this could have ruined my life if it weren't for the graces of certain peculiar circumstances in my life that kind of rescued me and made sure that I wouldn't be a homeless person on the street. I'm this far from being a homeless person on the street in certain key ways. Historically, if it weren't for some of the things that certain people did on my benefit, I might be a homeless person on the street right now, but I'm not. Thankfully, I get to live on welfare. And where am I? I'm lost again. Look, you know, in actual recording, what I'm discovering right now in real time, in actual attempt to record an idea that seemed really provocative and interesting and gripping, that I imagine would be very gripping to the audience in rehearsal, so to speak, you know? I thought about this in rehearsal, like, this would be a cool thing to say. I'm covering a lot of interesting points. But I sit here right now in my very first recording and I'm finding it very hard to capture the magic of what occurred to me in my rehearsal. You know, and so I'm in real time worried, am I getting boring? Of course I'm getting boring. I'm boring you with this self awareness of my being boring. So like maybe I gotta back up and maybe I gotta back up and not touch grass. Touch grass is that stupid phrase I've been hearing a lot lately, but touch my emotions instead. I gotta back up and touch my emotions. I'm feeling hopeless. And I'm wondering if you're feeling hopeless too, because maybe you can identify with the fact that your life is wasting away while you bury your head in the sand, but that's the best you feel you can do. You can't do any better, because why bother? Because, you know, if you're doomed and you know it, what good is fighting against the doom? If, on the other hand, you've got immediate personal gratification to make each moment somewhat worth living through. I always imagine this is why you can't just take homeless people, drug addicts who are wandering the street, and just like rehabilitate them and say, you know, straighten your act out. Here, we're going to give you a place to live. We're going to subsidize your housing. We're going to put you in a suit, clean you up, and send you out on interviews. And if you fight like crazy, you can claw your way out of this poverty you're in, and you can make mid-level management in 30 years. And you can feel proud and accomplished and all this shit, you know? And it's like, the addict that you're trying to talk into this deal might look at you and say, what the fuck are you talking about? 30 years from now, if I'm a mid-level manager somewhere and I'm financially independent and all this kind of shit, I'm still gonna have the hurt. It doesn't make any difference. What hurts me so much is still gonna be there. So look, I've got the hurt no matter which way I go. If I continue being a homeless bum, I've still got the hurt. If I claw my ass out of the poverty, out of the gutter here, and become a mid-level manager in 30 years, I've still got the hurt. I think it makes more sense to me, from where I'm coming from, to stay here in the gutter taking the drugs. It might shorten my life, but maybe that's a godsend. But at least I'll have some escape from the feelings that, some escape from the feelings that really work in real time for me, that are available to me now when I'm hurting now. Whereas you're asking me for 30 years of delayed gratification to make mid-level manager. 30 years, you know, delayed gratification is just another kind of hurt that I don't want to take on right now. I can't afford it. I'd rather take the drugs than sit here in the gutter. Thank you very much for your help, though, your offer. Thank you very much. And this is what I imagine a lot of people who are addicted to drugs, for example, might be able to describe their life as like in the light of some fantasy offer to get off the street that I've just imagined here. And I just think that there's a lot of people in the world who, if you offer them a claw your way to something society recognizes as much better for you, might feel that no deal, because they know they're doomed. When I think of all the people that are in this position, and I'm like, they might not even know they're doomed, they might not have articulated it, but it's intuitive and instinctive for them. But that's a lot of fucking suffering in the world. It's hard to grasp. Maybe it's, I don't know. I'm confused. I stumble on my words. You can tell under the pressure of making a video like this, I often feel the pressure to say something, anything, and I'll start spewing bullshit that I don't even feel is right. I've caught myself doing that a few times already in this very video. I'm desperate to say something to make sure I'm not boring, and back up again, back up to my feelings. You who might be doomed, you who might not know you're doomed, you who feel the doom intuitively, part of the reason I wanted to make this is to reach you and pretend, as much as can be done through a medium like this, pretend like you are visible and your pain is visible to me. I see you there. I imagine maybe there's somebody on their deathbed in a hospital or at home watching this. They're on their deathbed and they've had a miserable life, and I'm talking to you. I see you. I see what your life has been for you in terms of that misery. Practically, in a decade or two, I'm going to be in your position, I think. And on the other end of the spectrum, a teenager who's suffering from unrequited crushes. Like, they get crushes on people and they got unrequited crush, unrequited love, and it hurts a lot, and it feels life-threatening to them. You too. I see you. I see your suffering. I mean, I wish there was a way to actually get in front of your face and see that suffering, but there isn't. I can only do this kind of in this strange, abstract way, like performance art. This is my performance art. I'm performing the art of pretending to be witnessing your suffering. I have these memories of a recording, an audio book. I think it was The Aquarian Conspiracy by Marilyn Ferguson. And there's this clip of her saying about people cry when they feel their truly being listened to. It was something that she said some famous psychotherapist named Carl Rogers observed, that when people feel truly visible in a non-judgmental environment, when they feel like they're truly visible by people who are not judging them, they cry. Makes sense to me. You who are suffering and know you're doomed, I just wish, perhaps it's some consolation to you that even though I can't, I wish I could witness your actual specific individual suffering. You could tell me what it was. You on your deathbed could tell me why your life was so miserable to you. What harrowed you? And I would listen and say, yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. It's a tragedy. You're going to die. You're going to die. But no relief from it, except, no, death is not a relief from it, is it? No, it's just, you're not there to be relieved anymore. All you've had was, all you have. All you had was that hurt. I wish it could have been different. I wish it couldn't have been different for you. You, teenager with the unrequited love problem. You know, a lot of people might tell you, look, man, you're young. You'll get over this. By 25, you'll be happily married. You'll be popping out kids. But maybe not. You know, maybe the fuck not. Maybe not. You know, maybe this is a sample size of what the rest of your life is going to be like. And you can sense that this is the case. You can sense maybe if it is pretty severe for you and you feel like you're being rejected for reasons that are not likely to go away or that you can't overcome. You can sense that you're going to be the same way throughout your rest of your life and people are going to continue rejecting you for the rest of your life, despite all their comebacks at you like, hey, cheer up, chin up, you're young. By 25, you'll probably be happily married and popping out kids and having a pretty decent life. But maybe you know better. Maybe you know better. You, on those times when you can project through the rest of your life and see nothing but miserable loneliness, you might not be wrong when you project that. You might. But in the case that that is your destiny, whether or not you truly believe that or you're fighting like hell against it, circumstances put you there anyway. In the case that that is your destiny, and you're feeling that destiny right now, that hurts. And I'm here to witness you. I'm here to witness you in that pain. In your first world problem that people are going to tell you you have no right to complain about. I won't. I won't tell you that. You have a right to complain about that. Well, technically, I don't believe in that kind of right. But that's a topic for another video. But what you're feeling could be in response to something quite valid. Your life, as it stands for you now, you might be looking at another 80 years of misery. You might know it instinctively. Another 80 years of misery before you are the one on the deathbed reflecting on the fact that your life has indeed been that way. For you, wish I could be there, where you could tell me all this and I could say, yeah. I'm not going to be like everybody else who says, chin up, cheer up, by 25 you'll be okay. Kid, keep moving. Maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. Can you tell I'm sort of bookending my life with these examples? Can you tell that maybe I was that teenager and that I project I will be that person on the deathbed? Kind of going with what I experience and project. Now comes something really challenging that in rehearsal I realized was going to be a real challenge, but I think it's really important to push this out here, because this will be a major twist in this video, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people who were on board with me up to this point, as whoa, look at this guy. He's like pouring out empathy and compassion. What's not to like about that? I'll tell you what's not to like about that. It's how the extremes to which I take this might actually be quite repulsive to you. So hold on to your hat. If you're a murderer in some prison who has a very high-ranking, powerful desire that is authentic, it's not in the surface of some other desire. You have an authentic, terminal desire that is not explained in terms of the lack of some other gratification. You just want it authentically. You want to murder and torture your victims before murdering them. And it hurts you, the fact that you can't enjoy hurting and torturing people is for you this. When you think of all the murder and torture you can't do, you break down in tears. You experience that cold wave of death. Do I want to be with you in the prison cell you're in and see you and make you feel visible, make your pain feel visible in a non-shaming way? My gut says, yeah, I want to do that. I'm not playing favorites here with my compassion and all this bullshit. It's not really bullshit then, is it? But I'm not playing that kind of favorites. Yeah, I'll sit with you in your prison cell. I'll hold your hands and I'll cry with you. Knowing that perhaps you'd like to make me one of your victims, and that would be the best thing I could do for you, would be to submit to being one of your victims, but I'm not going to do that. Oh, and now comes the, what the hell? This is kind of sick and twisted. I understand. Because this puts you in a position, or puts me and anybody else like me in this kind of trying to figure out who they're going to express sympathy for in some binds that are hard to navigate. I've just expressed the desire to console a murderer. What about the derivative victims of that murderer? The people who loved the people that the murderer murdered. These are the families of victims and that kind of thing. It's like, to hear of me going in a prison and consoling their murderer would hurt them, would dig up the pain of having lost their loved one to that murderer. That pain is for them this. And yeah, now I want to console both of you. But if I consoled the prisoner, I would become a traitor to the consolation of the victims, the derivative victims. There's something about this that is also reflective of my personal life as well. I won't go into any more of that, but there's a term called compassion baiting, I believe. I would, in this instance, consoling the prisoner, be accused of and advertising it to you as some sort of virtue would be called performing the act of compassion baiting. It's like, I try to get you to feel compassion for people who do great harm to others. And the cost is that I increase suffering for those who were harmed by the ones I'm expressing compassion for. There's something like that that has to do with something in this about that is labeled compassion baiting. Look it up. You'll see what I'm talking about. But I have to be pragmatic, it's like, yeah, I can't really, since I'm in that bind, what am I going to decide to do about consoling the prisoner? I'm going to decide not to. Because when it comes to people who are not that malevolent versus people who are that malevolent, I'm going to side with the people who are not that malevolent, i.e. the indirect victims of that malevolent person. I might want to console both, but in all practicality, I'm not gonna console the prisoner, the murderer. But I just wish I could without hurting anybody else doing it. That's all. I have that wish. And yippee for me having that wish, that makes me look, that makes me feel like highly virtuous, right? So here I am, virtue signaling to you that I want to console everyone, even if they're malevolent. That's how benevolent I am, right? It's like, well, yeah, I am aware of that sort of thing. I don't want to be somebody who advertises these sort of virtues like that on the one hand, and sometimes I do. I don't know. I'm not perfect. But I have, the reason I thought I would go this direction and talk about the prisoner and all that, consoling murderers and whatnot, the reason I wanted to do that was just to show that it gets pretty complicated. And that complexity, I believe, is like the complexity that I have just illustrated, I believe, is some sort of slippery slope. It's adjacent to all political concerns. I get the feeling that it is. I can't connect the dots for you right now spontaneously. I don't know. But I have something tugging me that way. Something gnaws at me that says that this is a this is a stepping stone to talk about the complexity in the world at large that makes the relief of suffering extra complicated. But I got an idea of where to go next. There's this analogy I had developed like 20 years ago or something. I was like trying to explain conflict and suffering and stuff like that. Okay, in our deep, dark history as a species, everybody had lots of suffering, you know, and they had myths and lies and stuff to help them cope with the suffering. It's like they believed in an afterlife that is curated, regulated by some deity, and if, you know, all the suffering that they endure in their life on Earth right now could be redeemed after they die, and they get to sit next to their deity and bask in their glory. Only, you know, it's for one tribe geographically located 6,000 miles away from another tribe, their deities are going to be different. And so when they meet each other later on in history, and they find out that, oh, wait a minute, you've got a different deity. What are you talking about? You don't believe in my deity? And now they're fighting about which deity is the real one. And they can't let it go because they can't surrender their own deity. They can't say, oh, I'm sorry, my deity was the wrong one since we came up with it, you know, 500 years ago. We've been wrong, you've been right. Sure, we'll convert to you and we'll worship your deity from now on. Now, you expect any of them to say that? No, they're gonna say, you keep your talk of your deity away from me and my children, or I'm gonna kill you. And I just thought, okay, well, some people might say this is an obvious instantiation of neuroticism. We adopt neuroses to cope with our suffering. And this belief in the deity and the afterlife curated by it is a classic example of a coping neurosis. But I abstract now to the coping neurosis level just to say that it's not just about religion. There can be lots and lots of neurotic coping things that are secular as well, that are just as neurotic and just as threatening to their competitor neurotic things, that they're at each other's throats. And that this is not going to go away until we find an actual cure for the original suffering that is right here on Earth, which unfortunately I don't think we're going to do. Not in my lifetime. There's hopes that maybe in 500 years or so, we'll solve it all with technology and whatnot. Transhumanists kind of go for this sort of thing. But prior to that singularity and transhumanist acquisition of paradise, prior to that, we're still going to be at each other's throats with this, you know, competing neuroses that are threats to one another. I mean, that goes back to this. The thing that harrows us so much, that's unbearable, that we can't face, one of the ways of coping with that and not having to actually face the doom that implies is these coping neuroses, some of which are sanctioned and approved by society. Talk to any of the adults running around with these neuroses. They'll say, yes, you know, doing drugs and that kind of stuff, that's neurotic. But believing in our deity, that's not neurotic. That's sanctioned by us. That's an adult way of coping. Meanwhile, they're at odds with their competition and ready to kill each other. So even the sanctioned, adult, mature means of coping with this end up causing a lot of pain and hurt for others in the form of the conflict, the wars, and all that. I don't see any hope of us ever getting past that, except for, you know, the paradise of the future, whether it's brought about by some singularity and transhumanist revolution or not. It's something. If we don't figure out a way to calm us down and give us what we most want while we're still on Earth, we're going to keep inflicting suffering on each other more and more. Not more and more, but at least as much as we do now. Maybe more, I don't know. Look, I'm getting back to that place where, struggling to find something to say, I'm starting to spew bullshit again. Let me tell you how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling like I'm not doing a good job. I feel like I'm not explaining things as well as I've tried to explain them to myself in the past. I'm feeling inadequate as a communicator. But I'm going to press on. I've kind of made a promise to myself that I would press on, you know? No matter how badly I think I'm doing in any given moment, I've got to keep pressing on. You might have caught on to, I might have been successfully communicating a few things to you. That's fine. I hope you enjoyed it. Which is another point I want to make. You know, it's like, what is the point of all this? Saying stuff about suffering, human suffering, and our prospects for relieving it. What is the point of all this? Do I expect that anybody's going to listen and this is going to help anybody? I'm not sure it helps anybody, except for like anybody who's like, who's this channel for? Who is this channel for, right? We come back to that question. This channel is for people who are suffering or not. But they got, at a minimum, you just have to be interested in humanity's prospects for relieving suffering. And that interest might be from a place of suffering yourself, and that's what makes you really interested in it. I would be interested if I was suffering, and I am, so I am. But you can be academically curious about it without actually suffering much yourself. You say, yeah, I want to know about theories of relieving suffering. Or you could come here to ridicule me and say, look, what does this stupid loser have to say? You know, and like perhaps some of the things that you think the things I say that you think are stupid entertain you. So you laugh at me. It's I'm a clown. Great, I'm a clown. If you come here to watch a clown and be entertained, I hope I can at least do that for you. I welcome all people who have a reason, who are entertained at least. But in other videos, let me try to plug future videos that I haven't even thought about to make yet. Because I've daydreamed about what other kinds of videos to make, and some of them are actually quite philosophically deep. And if there's philosophy geeks among you who have turned into this video thinking, maybe he's going to start with the philosophical geekdom right away and I'll be interested. Sorry, I haven't delivered on that. I've been more focused on just emoting and trying to connect with sufferers. But what can you expect about philosophical geekdom from me in the future? That's a good question. I mean, I have, I believe, mentioned in the intro video that I do go into topics like epistemology and metaphysics and metaethics and the mind-body problem and so and so. Yes, I still plan to do that because I think these are all quite important to anybody who is genuinely interested in relieving suffering for the world. I mean, if you believe that we can relieve suffering by means of the ideologies we adopt, which is like politics and religion and all this kind of stuff, all these ideology, I take ideology to mean, I'm going to define it for you right now. Ideology is a comprehensive view of reality. It's what you use to explain everything. It's like a unified theory of everything. So like religion, Christianity is an ideology because it is used to explain everything. Got a question? You know, Christianity can answer it. And so ideologies, perhaps a synonym for that is worldview. But anyway, a lot of us, we realize that we're trying to relieve the suffering of just about everybody on the planet by means of which ideology we adopt. So we're going to explore, we're going to do a little comparative ideology study here. One of my favorite and key comparisons is to compare the metaphysics and epistemology of radical relativism versus realism. Realism and anti-realism. And I'll be talking about them much later. I think that a lot of you might be aware of this, and a lot of you surprised me by not being aware of this, but anti-realism tends to be the bulwark and backbone of a lot of liberal, left-wing, progressive politics. And I'm told by other scholars that this started back in the mid-1950s when the Marxists were scared that their scientific Marxist predictions were not going to come true. And they reached for the nuclear bomb or the weapon of mass destruction of some sort, anyway, of argument, which is that truth is relative. Truth is what you make it. Truth is subject to the mind. Truth and existence literally. What exists is generated by the mind. They say the Marxists picked this up in the mid-19th century, the mid-20th century. And for that reason, well, I put a bunch of spin on there. Calling it a nuclear bomb or weapon of mass destruction of argumentation, that's my unique spin on it. That's a thing that I'm trying to bullshit you with right now, with impressive sounding stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to paint myself up. I'm trying to prop myself up as like at least a pseudo-intellectual to entice you to watch other videos where I do more pseudo-intellectualizing. Won't that be fun? I hope you will find it fun. I hope you will find it also earnestly interesting. I mean, I hope I can present that stuff in a very interesting way. So, like, I've already presented you with like a segue from just concern about suffering to concern over the conflict between realism and anti-realism. Progressive politics is typically concerns itself more with relieving suffering than the conservatives. Right wings are typically referred to as fascists who don't care about people, don't care about your feelings. Whereas the opposite of fascisms, the liberals, the left, the progressives, are like all about caring for people. The feelings matter and not that kind of stuff. And so here you have the group of people who are presenting themselves as more compassionate, aligning themselves with a metaphysical and epistemological theory called anti-realism. Why is that? What does it do? How does that work? And what are the merits of anti-realism and realism and all that kind of stuff? This is stuff that I've been personally interested in for a long time. I feel tempted to also try to tempt you, intellectual types, with other kinds of interesting ideas. Okay, let me try this. I'm probably gonna screw this up as I try to explain this to you, and I've written it down and I've tried to explain it at other places, so I've had a rehearsal or two, but that might not help. Let's check this out. There's something I call the Uber trolley problem. Now, the trolley problem is like this thought experiment in meta-ethics, where it's like you try to imagine you're on a trolley and there's a fork in the trolley on the tracks. You could go down one track, track A or track B. Track A has one person on the track that can't move, and if you went that way, you would kill that one person. The track B has 5 people who can't move, and you'd kill 5 people. What do? Switch? Where do you make the trolley go? Kill 1 or 5 people, right? So that's a trolley problem. It's meant to ply on your instincts about the value of life and all that kind of stuff. Empathy, sympathy, compassion. You want to hurt fewer people, you go with 1 person over 5. Anyway, the Uber trolley problem is like this colossal version of that, where there's a calculation about how many people are suffering over how much time. And what's become popular now is a discussion about the tech-broligarchy. There's like lots of talk about this. You can hear people say that Donald Trump is a Dunning-Kruger stupid puppet of the tech-bro oligarchy, who are like gung-ho about AI. They want to advance AI. Why are they so excited about AI? And they want to run the world like a corporation, namely like one of their own corporations, replace government with CEOs, stuff like that. But anyway, back to that point about why do they want to advance AI? Well, it's because they want to bring about that singularity and the transhumanist revolution, the entry into a secular paradise brought about by the technology. They want to live forever. They want to be like Ray Kurzweil's prediction, people who are, of a certain age today can expect to live forever due to the technological advancements that will extend their lives as long as they want and regenerate their body and make their bodies like really super durable and all this kind of stuff. Another option that's often discussed is like uploading your consciousness to a supercomputer where it's paradise inside of that supercomputer. That virtual reality inside is like ecstasy or something. I don't know. There are some philosophical assumptions about the efficacy of AI to be able to do this sort of thing that center around the mind-body problem. It depends on how you think of consciousness. And like, there's one point that I heard Jordan Peterson once make that I want to insert here briefly, is that AI may or may not require artificial consciousness. You might be able to create a successful AI without creating literal artificial consciousness. That is, you don't have to have the AI actually be aware of the world like a conscious being has to for it to work. Or it might be contrary to that. The facts might be that you need artificial consciousness in order to get a successful AI that can actually solve our problems for us and deliver us into that transhumanist paradise. But most of the AI enthusiasts believe in a theory of consciousness called physicalism, which says that consciousness is physical. It is nothing beyond physical. as opposed to dualists who believe that consciousness is a fundamentally, radically different kind of substance in existence that is separate from all things physical, like matter and energy. Consciousness is something that is so radically different from any of that that you can't replicate consciousness in physical form. I happen to be closer to the dualist who believe that consciousness is radically different. But those who believe that consciousness can be literally created through manipulating matter and energy, creating machines that are conscious, what we believe we're doing with AI right now. They believe that they are literally creating consciousness by building machines to mimic the functions of consciousness. So these are physicalists who are likely to be excited about the prospect of the transhumanist paradise, who are likely to push and accelerate technological progress to make that paradise come to us sooner. They're excited by the prospect that they can physically create consciousnesses smart enough to deliver us unto that paradise. Let's metaphorically say that they're drooling, they're salivating over the prospect of this happening in their lifetime. Peter Thiel, or Thiel, however you would pronounce his name, and also other tech bros, they might be, let me project and say that they might be feeling this. They're really excited and they're drooling for the chance to be immortal and enter that transhumanist paradise because they believe that AI is going to deliver them to it. And they believe that because they believe that they're actually creating a consciousness that can do this. Because they're physicalists. They believe that consciousness is reducible to physical functions. So a dualist theory threatens them and would shut them down and make them feel, oh, I can't get into the paradise as soon as I wanted. And that they're going to end up on their deathbeds. Chances are they won't be as miserable as that person I speculated at the beginning of this video. But you can see why, if they're drooling for the opportunity to get into that paradise, you can see why they might want to throw all poor people under the bus to accelerate technological progress today. They don't want to give welfare to suffering masses so they can take that money and instead invest it in accelerated technological progress, accelerated AI development, so that this will give them a better chance of being alive when that technological paradise, that transhumanist paradise, comes about. So, they're willing to throw just about anybody under the bus to make sure that they make it to this paradise because they're excited and they're drooling over the prospect of that because they're physicalists. And if we can challenge physicalism, and I believe I can, I suspect I can anyway, we can offer a counter-argument to calm them down and say, really, people? And if we can calm them down, we can make a good case for continuing welfare to take care of people that they would have otherwise thrown under the bus, like we're all trying, like all the Trumpsters are trying to do. Throw all the poor people under the bus. The Uber trolley problem, we'll come back to that. Compare the number of people and the amount to which they're going to suffer and the duration that they're going to suffer under the program of continuing welfare. Compare that against throwing all those people under the bus and reaching the transhumanist paradise that much sooner. If we throw them under the bus, we can get to that paradise sooner. If we don't throw them under the bus and keep supporting their welfare butts, then we delay the transhumanist paradise. Those are two outcomes Which contains more suffering for how many people? That's the Uber trolley problem. Okay, so like, if you're on welfare and you're worried that your welfare is going to get taken away from you, one of the reasons that it might be taken away from you is because the tech-broligarchy believes in physicalism. It fuels their excitement, makes them more willing to throw you under the bus. So you better hope that there's a convincing argument for dualism instead that will convince enough people to oppose these people who believe in physicalism and are thus excited enough to throw you under the bus. I'm going to save my explanation, my defense of physicalism for another video. I hope in the meantime that I have at least piqued your interest in that. Okay, goodbye.